Hey there, Brooke. How's it going today?
What's up? What's up? Getting ready for VRMA. I'm excited. I'm leave tomorrow, Saturday. So excited.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. I think it's good to get there like the day before. You get to like find your heading and orientation. Orlando, you get to get like your first rain shower, on the top, and like, all right, that's how it's going to work. So looking forward to it. I think we're going to have a good episode though today, Brooke. I'm looking forward to this. Dustin and I chatted before you hopped in, before we hit record, and we kind of got a little background about what he's doing. It seems pretty interesting. But Brooke, how did you originally meet Dustin? Originally?
You know what? I don't even know. I think he actually just randomly reached out to me and we started chatting and hit it off and became friends and was just super impressive what he's done at Portoro and yeah, been friends ever since. I don't
Nice.
know.
Well,
Dustin, do
Dustin,
you know? I can't even remember. Do you know?
yeah.
I think I followed you and loved your content. And like you said, I think part of growing is connecting with great people. And as soon as I jumped off and started per tour, I was like, I got to connect with Brooke and see if he can help me out. And you have. So I think that was it, man.
Oh, awesome. Well, I'd love to hear a little more, if you could, Dustin, on the origin story, how you kind of maybe just got into the short-term rental space, what you're doing before, what you're doing now, and kind of what your focus is going forward with your business.
Yeah, absolutely. I spent 10 years in the real estate SaaS space, actually, with Dotloop, acquired by Zillow, and spent some time there. So I've been in and around real estate literally like my whole career in life. And what I noticed while I was at Zillow is all the successful people around me had vacation rentals, and they were not only going to great places and using them, but renting them. So I got very interested. And like most people sitting in my seat and others in the industry, bought my first vacation rental, a small little lake town outside of Knoxville, Tennessee. And the goal was just, hey, let's try to pay the bills and see if we can enjoy this place at low cost. And, really started to see, wow, you can make some money doing this. And this is really, really interesting. And so when I left Zillow, I had the entrepreneur itch and I wanted to take my ideas of this vacation rental product and space sort of to the next level. So my first iteration was D. Alexander. We did a Propco Opco model and we raised a little money. Our thesis there was, create a product that looks and feels the same across many markets. So we did that for a couple of years, and then COVID changed things around, and I had actually ended up leaving and joining Avant Stay at one of their peak growths. I think maybe I was 150 homes when I started there as the VP of homes, and then after a couple of years I exited, we were near 1,000 homes. So we saw huge, huge growth. Very, interesting model that they had and the things that they did. Learned a ton, but got that entrepreneur itch again, and really wanted to focus our efforts at Toro on a special segment of the market, right? Premium homes, traditional vacation destinations. And so we, created the business model and jumped out August of last year, and been trying to grow ever since and deliver on that model.
Nice.
Yeah.
What does VP of Homes mean? Is that like head of
The
is that head of growth?
worst title, non-descriptive. So the way I would describe my job there, it actually went through many changes, but it was all things post sales, post acquisition. So we onboarded, all of the 1,000 or so units that came onto the platform. Part of that was we had leases, right? So we furnished all those homes. I had a interior design team. We had an implementation team. I had a procurement team. And we were, onboarding, a couple hundred homes. I felt like a quarter. And so that was pretty intense. That grew over time into I had homeowner success underneath me. I was on, essentially the investment committee. We were buying real estate. So I was on implementing acquisitions. So it morphed over time, but really more on the implementation side, the onboarding side, customer success side of things. So but learned a ton there. It was a great experience.
Yeah. I feel like Avante is this big brand in our space, but people don't talk about them as much as they talk about some of the other big brands in our space. But I feel like they're a little underrated. I mean, I don't know them too well. I talked to them maybe one time
Yeah.
before, but it seems like they're still doing really strongly. And they have like to your point from a second ago, Dustin, they have kind of a point of view. Like when you look at different Avante units in different locations, you can kind of see what they're doing. It's not like what
Yeah.
some larger property managers do, which is kind of take everything in multiple markets. They have a thought
Yeah,
process.
the thing that I loved about Avant Stay and coming from D. Alexander is the thought on the brand, right? Like what assets, what's the quality, what are we after? And that's one of the main reasons I joined the company is it's a very high end brand. I love the product there, and yeah, they're doing some great things. Like other companies had their challenges, but I think right now they're in growth mode and they're doing pretty well. And I still love their product and have a lot of friends that still work there. So yeah, I think they're doing
Yeah.
good things.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Dustin, the goal of today is to kind of go through the top 10 mistakes that you shared with Brooke as part of the book that we're going to talk about today, Vacational Secrets. So
Yes.
we'll dive right in if you're cool with that, with number one. And maybe you can share kind of some of your feedback, your thoughts, the mistake you made, if you've kind of figured out ways to correct it. We're always
Yeah.
game to hear about those pieces.
Yeah,
All right. Awesome.
absolutely. Let's do it.
Phenomenal. Number one, underestimating the power of a good team. Hire the best at the best and then turn them loose. Industry experience goes a long way too. Don't hire on pedigree alone. So the people and the hiring is something that's come up a few times for sure over the last few episodes in our recording so far. What's kind of your process here? Where'd you start? Are you today on hiring and people?
Yeah, and I'll go just even broader, right? I've this is like my third or fourth startup company, if you will, and what I've seen, in each one of those iterations and the companies around is the team is everything, right? It's finding the right people that have, the vision that you share with them. So they got to be really bought in. Not that they're probably as bought in as you, as the CEO, the entrepreneur, but they really have to get on board, right? And be after the same goals. And I think especially early on, you can, underestimate the quality aspect or just the right people. And, I've found just time and time again on the teams that I've built, when I left Zillow, my team was 100 people in multiple divisions. And the ones that are the most successful is just having the right people in the right seat at the right time. And I think it's so important. And I know Brooke is a big proponent of, the indicator tests, right? That show you what kind of person is supposed to fit in the right role. And I think that's super, super important. I think especially in, our industry where you start off small and you maybe have family or friends, that you sort of grow with, outright. That's great, but it's about having the right person in the right seat, and that really can catapult you. And what I'll also say is, there's a lot of people that have the pedigree. I mentioned pedigree. It's right. They have all the things on the paper that make them seem like a good fit. But until you get the personality test, until you get the culture index and you find out where they really should be, that's when you see people excel to the next level. And I attribute, a lot of my own personal success having those great people around me, above me, below me, next to me. I think it's all about the team. And I'll give a shout out to my senior vice president of ops, Kenny Ball. So when I left, he was a VP at AvantStay as well. He actually left before me, but when I left AvantStay and wanted to start Portoro, I'm like, okay, I'm good at a lot of things, but I know where my weak spots are. And if I need to build this company, who's the person that could fill those weak spots? And he's the first person that came to mind. He's just an absolute rock star on the operations side. And I knew I could grow the business while he executes on the business. And I think part of our success is we teamed up and we built this company together. And that's where I attribute, the success, putting him in that seat. And he's filled, the spots underneath him and next to us. So yeah, amazing if you have the right people in the right seat. And I will also say, encourage people, sometimes that lasts forever, that right person, the right seat. And sometimes that lasts for a year or 2 years, right? And things can change. So I would encourage people to reassess who's in the seats and what roles are needed over time.
Yeah, I mean, this one, Conrad, this came up all the time. I mean, like literally, Dustin, you just checked like 4 boxes from the book that we hear, but it is so true. I mean, I keep thinking like my organization, like when you have that one employee, that one team member that you can count on, that it's going to get taken care of. And maybe you have that one that maybe not so much, like just how much stress the one that doesn't handle it that gives and puts on your plate. And I think there's a guy I follow online. He talks about it all the time. It's like, if you want to reduce your stress, if you want to go long in this business, because it is hard, you're going to get burned out. Like just hire one more A player. That's going to reduce so much stress in your plates. And it's also very often, if you hire that person, they're going to be accretive. They're going to pay for themselves, and it's going to reduce that stress. So I know it's tough sometimes to add that other salary, the other payroll. But if you truly
Yeah.
can get that A player, but
Yeah.
I mean, and you're home free. But the problem is, how do you identify that person? How do you know if they really are? Now, obviously, if you worked with them in the past, like I've got a couple people on my team that I've worked with previously. We know each other. We know each other just like you talked about, Dustin. We know our strengths and weaknesses.
That's right.
It's where it gets really, really hard is if you haven't worked with them in the past. So how do you stack the deck in your favor? And that's where you leverage those psychometric personality assessment tools like predictive index and culture index, where it really can stack it in your favor.
Yeah. I've always lived by this: hire slow, fire fast. And I don't mean to be crass or mean by saying fire fast, but move people along that aren't a fit in the role, and take the time that you need to get the right people in the role. It's so important to just get it right, I would say.
As CEO of Vintory, I spend 70% of my time, that's my target, I should say, recruiting and building and nurturing team. Like that's what
Yep.
it's all about. At our stage, like, we have the right idea at the right time in the right industry. What determines our success or not at this point is really the team I surround ourselves with. And
Yep.
that's really what will end up determining how successful we are.
That's right. Totally agree.
Absolutely. I like the pedigree note, Dustin, because there's been people that I've encountered in my career who on paper look great and then in reality are horrible. I hate to say it, right? And it's just one of those things where once you actually work with someone, you may realize someone that doesn't come from a traditional background even, or, we had this writer one time who like had a GED, didn't even graduate high school, and was the best SEO writer that we ever had because he dedicated himself to learning about headings and structures and things like that. So you also have to be, I think, a little bit open-minded too when you're looking for people. Sometimes you find some hidden gems, you know what I mean? In my experience
Yeah,
as well.
absolutely. Totally agree.
Yeah. Phenomenal. Well, let's head over to number 2 then, Dustin. Number 2, wasting money on non-ROI items early on. Many get caught up in overhiring and overspending in the early days, and then they run out of cash too quickly and are forced to make tough decisions. Be scrappy and lean as long as you can. So what's kind of the thought process here as you grow your current business
Yeah.
as well?
Yeah, I think, we've seen a lot of this over the past year or so where you've got some of the bigger players in our industry, making a lot of cuts, right? Whether it's layoffs or they're sacrificing and taking on inventory that they wouldn't necessarily do. You just sort of see that and feel that. We've seen a lot of that go on. And, I think, as a CEO, when you're building a company, you need to have a good war chest, and everything always takes longer and it costs more and it's harder than it is. That's just like how business works, and that's how life is. And I think you can have all these great ideas when you're young and you're starting up and you want to do everything. But really, when it boils down to it, you need to do the things that drive, bottom line value, right? It's spend money where money counts. Spend it on growth marketing, spend it on, retention, spend it on the things that are going to really drive ROI. I see people, and I even got caught up in this. I've made these mistakes. Obviously, that's where the book is the mistakes. And, one of my prior companies, we spent a ton of money on PR and things that, man, just didn't drive the value that we should have, just thousands of dollars. And it's like, man, if I could go back, I would have cut that and hired another salesperson or spent more money on ads or mailers or whatever it is. So I think the overarching, guidance for people is really think about what is going to drive that next guest, that next homeowner, that next conversation with an owner that might be offboarding, and invest there. And sometimes it might be people, sometimes it might be technology, sometimes it might be ads, but that's where I think you need to think about, spending your money, and time is money, and spending your time. So those things sort of go hand in hand. And on the be scrappy and lean, it's about, I think, it's really about just making your dollar last longer, right? It's tough to build these businesses. It takes a lot of hard work. So it's make sure you have a war chest. And on the overhiring part, I think also, it's all about a good team, like I mentioned in the mistake number 1. But think about people who also serve different aspects while you're growing. I'll give an example, and I'll shout out Jasmine on our team. She's our homeowner success manager. And we invest a lot of money in marketing the property, right? Pictures and staging. And we spend a ton of money on that. And that's where we know it's going to drive ROI and clicks. Well, one place we know we want to invest that money, but we have to be scrappy at the same place. So Jasmine has done a phenomenal job becoming our stager, right? And she has like no background in that. So we sort of set her up with a photographer and a designer, and she's just done an amazing job. Go look at our photos. It's all her staging. And so instead of hiring and paying somebody $500,000 to come stage our home, we're using somebody on our team to do that. So it's utilize other talents and grow people so that you can maximize ROI is the headline for me there.
Yeah. I've read this blog one time, and it says, it was talking about like hints on hiring a VP of marketing. And when you're in the interview process and their response is like buy a bunch of swag and like, blue logoed pens, like run as fast as you can. Like,
That's right.
That's not marketing, right? But one of my favorite books is Ready, Fire, Aim by Michael Masterson. And he talks about, and I've talked about this before, he says, until you get to $1 million in revenue in your business, like real revenue, not like gross booking revenue, real revenue, your only focus is to get to $1 million in revenue. Don't worry about like all these other little fluff things. Like it doesn't matter because you don't have a business. He said tons of really good like idea businesses have like fallen on the wayside, and they're like in the the graveyards of business lore because they didn't focus on getting to $1 million in revenue.
Yeah.
Like that should be your primary focus. Until you get to $1 million in revenue, don't focus on anything else. Like that's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
I
I
think that's
totally agree with that.
that's a great book for people to read if they're
Yeah.
smaller right now, because it's like he also talks in that book about like the classic, I'm going to go get business cards and I'm going to get an office, I'm going to work on a mission statement and things like that. And it's like,
Doesn't
to your
matter.
point, there might be a time and a place for that, but it's much later on. It's like once you've gotten some revenue in the door, and you see that, right, with some people. I've seen that in my own personal life, not in the vacational industry, but just a friend who starts a business and makes it look more official than it actually is, but he has no customers, he has no revenue, right?
And,
That's the oxygen that matters. Yeah.
and Y Combinator, Paul Graham calls that playing house, right? They're playing
Yeah.
house. They like want, they want the pretty office. They're all worried about like getting the desks, and they're all worried about like the, killer, like just get some freaking revenue.
I wish I could give
Yeah.
you guys my home office tour here. Yeah. I mean, we don't have any offices, this is about the extent of our swag. It's like a year-old polo and a hat. Because, it's like you said, that stuff just doesn't matter until you get bigger. Nobody's going to pay attention to you, and it's not going to drive cash flow. So I agree with that.
That's for sure. I like that. That was a good one. It was a good take, Dustin, on kind of some of the advice that we've heard synthesized in a different way. Let's head over to number 3 then. Letting yourself get distracted. Shiny object syndrome. Stay true to your niche and your focus. If it's not a F yes, I won't swear, but you get it. It's probably a no. Sacrificing your values and getting distracted will take you down the wrong path. Our Brooks' 3 favorite words: shiny object syndrome.
Shiny object happens all the time.
Yeah, and talking to Brooke early on, we talked about this a lot, right? And it's no secret I use Vintory, and we talked about Portoro's brand and who we want to be. You can't be everybody to everything, and for us, it's premium homes, large single family, vacation destination. And I've had so many opportunities come to me, and that's not to brag, but you get opportunities that come. Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? And you're going to have to sacrifice something if you go do that versus what you're focused on doing. For us, it was, well, we could go manage, these 100 condos and, so somewhere that do 25K a piece in revenue versus where our target market is, which is doing, big single family homes that do 200K in revenue. And it's like, oh, that may be great because you get 100 units, but we're sacrificing our model, which is super high touch, concierge services, all those things. So I think what, I would advise people to do is if you pick your brand, your target addressable market, just stick to it. It will come and it will pay off in the long run if you just stay close to that. I'll give some of my learnings from my past company. And it's no secret, you have challenges when you dive into this. We started as a lease arbitrage company. We quickly went into hotel management, buying real estate. We became a property management company overnight. We did acquisitions. And it was like everybody was just distracted going in a million different directions. And it made it very hard for, somebody like me as a VP. We start down one path and then, 1 month it's down another, and the next month it's down another. So it can be a strain on not only the people, but also the culture and just confusion on, okay, well, I thought we were this kind of company and now we're going down this path. So, for all of those reasons, I think you have to just stay true to who you want to be and how you want to execute. It all comes down to that execution. So I really, really learned this though in my SaaS days, right? If you're building a software product, you will get feature requests, like a billion of those every single month from your customer base. It's like, yeah, we could build that, but you got to say no to, 999 million of those to do the one right thing to take you the next step. And so I sort of took that learning from the software model and applied it to our model, which is more service oriented. But I think it rings true. Stay true. Don't get distracted. Don't do things that, are going to break your model and stress your team and lead you down a path that's ultimately going to sacrifice other things that you should be doing.
Yeah, I made this mistake too. I mean, so here I launched in Ocean City, Maryland, my company, and I'm already thinking about like going into different markets. I didn't even have like a property in Ocean City, and I'm already planning like, all right, we're going to go to Jersey, we're going to go to Virginia, we're going to go to North Carolina, and it was ridiculous. I didn't have any market share in the primary market we were in. I mean, even when I built my website, I was building it like it was a national brand, and I think there's like a strategic part to that, which was good. But I should have just focused on just like be the best in one market, then and only then. I mean, Steve Schwab says that all the time. He's like, be really, really good, be the best in a market, then you can start chasing all these other markets. And the same thing, while we were chasing every single property, and Ocean City is a 9-mile sandbar with 20,000 condos. We were chasing every single building. It took us probably 3 years till we realized that like the majority of our revenues were coming from 4 or 5 buildings. And it
Yeah.
was so much easier to manage those properties. And and we had good market share. They were high ADRs, high occupancy, good guest reviews. So we really ended up shifting about by year 3, where we only focused on really those 4 or 5 buildings. And it was just amazing how that helped the operations team, the marketing team. And, obviously, we had more profits fall to the bottom line at that point too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I
I'll
think
just
that's
add that.
yeah,
I
please,
was going to
Dustin.
add to the market aspect. We're in Austin, Texas, and growing, but we're pretty much in the core downtown area. When you enter a market like that, you're like, oh my gosh, we can go to Lake Travis, we can go to Lake Austin, we can go to Hill Country, we can go to Fredericksburg. Like you just get this like hunger in you to grow so far, but you quickly realize like, oh man, it's going to be tough just to go that extra couple of miles out to this new market, which is close but so different. So I hear you there, and I think that focus is why we've doubled our inventory in the last 6 months.
Yeah. I think you nailed it a minute ago too, Dustin, where you said we had this opportunity where maybe we could have managed 100 condos. And that's hard to turn down, to be fair, especially when you're small, because it sounded like that would have delivered in the short term a lot of revenue, like a lot of money in your pocket would have happened, or would have come into the company coffers, so to speak, from that efforts. But you have some, you've been through the battle a few times, and you realize, yep, that's going to get me. It's going to sound good at
Yeah,
first, and then it's going to come in later behind and bite me in the tail. So
that's right.
totally understand that side of it. Let's head over to number 4. Number 4, getting caught up in the need to do it all in-house mentality. That's in quotes, by the way. Outsource, then insource. Use off-the-shelf tech, outsourced experts, contractors, etc., until you can afford and need to bring those pieces of the business in-house. What's kind of your philosophy today, and how'd you learn this? Maybe going back to, I guess, to the team building piece from number 1 as well.
Yeah, it's a combination of all of these mistakes. Really, it's knowing what you're good at and doing that super well. Also, it's to be scrappy. It's spend your money wisely. So, for me, it's a combination of all of these, and really, when you're growing a company, you do have this need, and Brooke just mentioned, like building a world-class website, building your own technology, right? Having every single tool in the book, and hiring out, like all these things that you can do in-house, hiring your own marketing person, your own sales team. But you quickly realize it's so much to manage, and there's so much to do, that if somebody could just take this off my plate, I could focus more of my time on the things that I really need to do to grow the business. I'll shout out a couple of companies. Vintory was super critical for us to jump off. I wanted to grow the acquisition side of our business, grow the brand, grow the team, while somebody was really helping me do all the hard work on the marketing and all that. And I think, we've brought a little bit of pieces of that in-house, but we still use Vintory for some other things. I'll do accounting. We use Simplify for accounting. Accounting is a beast, and yes, you can hire your own CPA, your own accountant, but it's just one thing I didn't want to worry about. I wanted to focus on growth. I wanted to focus on building the team. So I hired Jesse Arrett over at Simplify to do those things. And there's many other cases in my business that we've done that. And I think I've just taken that from bits and pieces of my career. It's like, there are some things that just really aren't worth bringing in house until you're at such a size and scale that you sort of, can see the benefit. But when you're small, you got to be small, you got to be scrappy, you got to be lean, you got to do the things that you're really good at and outsource the rest and let somebody else that you really trust that can execute do that. And I think it goes back down to, again, the focus, the shiny object syndrome. Like I said, it's a combination of all these. Do what you're really good at and let somebody else do the things that you're not, and that can keep you very, very focused is the point there.
Perfectly said. I don't think I can add anything to that.
Right on. No, I think that's great. Well, let's head on over to number 5 then, kind of moving along here then. Number 5, trying to build tech and tools too early. Use technology not for technology's sake, but use it to do more with less and invest in the plan early. So what's kind of the thought process today from your perspective, Justin, on tech and
Totally.
using it in the
So
business?
yeah, part of our brand and our promise and what we want to build as a company is we want to do, some tech enablement, right? We want to have some technology that we know can drive some additional ROI for the business, can, delight owners and guests, and that is part of who we want to be. But early on, you can try to build everything yourself, and there are so many amazing tools out there that you can pick up off the shelf. They integrate well, that can accomplish, and get you a couple of steps to where you want to be without spending the money, the time. Like building technology, I've been in SaaS. I was in SaaS for 10 years. it is expensive and it is hard and it is just a different, animal. Like you got to have a SaaS, mindset, and you have a technology mindset. And so, what we want to build is a great homeowner portal, something like imagine having your banking app, or I always use Zillow, right? Those things are super powerful, but they spend millions and millions of dollars a month on that technology. And so, there are tools that we can use out of the box first that might get us a step there, right? A good homeowner portal or a guest app, right? We want an app in home, in hand for a guest to, click, I want a massage or I want a private chef. Like we want to enable those services in a good way. We want it, inherently within our product, Portoro.com. But there are other great products out there that can help us get there before we start building that. And I think timing is everything. We just released our homeowner app. It is, it's pretty amazing. It's beta with our homeowners, but we didn't have enough homeowners to really do that before. It wouldn't have made an impact. So now we're getting a lot of momentum. We doubled our inventory, and it's like, okay, now it's time to do that. As we get scale, it will be more important to focus on guests. So we want to build that guest app. But right now, again, it's not going to drive as much ROI as I believe. So I think tech is all about timing. It's all about getting it right. It's servicing and providing a lot of value. But my advice to people, and again, in my mistakes and experiences being in SaaS, is don't try to build everything at once, and don't try to build everything. Like, don't just have that mindset. I would piece things together, and you can always remove something, right? You can always take something away and build. And you learn a lot using those off-the-shelf products. You really learn what's valuable, what feature set you actually use. And, we're in a pretty young industry, and there's new technologies coming out all the time. And they're really, really improving at a fast rate, which is great. So I would encourage people to, learn from myself and others. I think Brooke's got a new tech series out there. Just like use some stuff to get off the ground, execute well. And then if you want to build something, pull one thing away and build a replacement. And I think you'll get a lot more value, and you won't burn cash as fast. And you can do a lot with the off-the-shelf technology.
Yeah. Well, when I launched Vintory, so just a little history lesson for everybody. When I launched Vintory, we were really just a marketing agency, and we pulled in, but I priced it like a SaaS, like a subscription-based software company, and we pulled in off-the-shelf technology. So we pulled in HubSpot. We became a HubSpot agency partner. We use CallRail for call tracking. We use Unbounce for landing pages. We Frankenstein like a dozen different solutions into our platform and included that in the monthly subscription. That was part of our services. And then we slowly over time started decaying some of those off the shelf solutions, and we started building out and productizing our own in-house. But what that allowed us to do was self-fund the development of this. We actually had a business, again, going back to what we said before, of getting to that $1 million in revenue. So I didn't have to take VC. I didn't have to do all these crazy, so I control my destiny and my business now. I don't have to rely on other people. But it wasn't, honestly, it wasn't because I was like, that this great strategic plan. It's because I was bootstrapped, I was scrappy, and I didn't have any freaking money, and I had no
It's
other
expensive to
choices.
build tech.
Yes. I mean, had somebody given me $20 million out of the gates, I probably would have blown through it all, and I'd still be where I am today, and probably own, 10% of my company now, as opposed to what I do own. So there is something about that. So it reminds me of two principles. The first is there's a guy named Paul Buchheit, who was the inventor of Gmail. He was like one of the early employees at Google. And he calls it the 90-10 principle. He's like, anytime you can get away with 90% of the output with 10% of the work, do it, right? And then it reminds me of another gentleman, Dave Wordley, used to be our CTO at LiveRes. He called it the build, buy, rent. He's like, you have these options. Should we build the technology? Should we buy it, or should we rent it? And very often it's a hell of a lot cheaper to rent it. So perfect example, look at Google Maps, or look at Twilio. Like, you cannot reinvent Twilio for what you pay for that. Like, to rebuild that, like, that would be insane. So like Uber, for example, like they have all the capital in the world. They could have built Twilio or a version of it, but why, when Twilio exists and you can pay like, pennies on the dollar, for what that technology is. So again, very often there's some off the shelf technology that you can incorporate. You don't have to do it all yourself. And there's been a lot of companies out there. If it is a core differentiator for your business, do it. But if it's not, if it's a commodity, just go ahead and rent it out there. But there's a lot of companies out there, my last point here, that have tried to build full tech stacks, spent, millions and millions of dollars, and it still wasn't any better than what was out there already. So you got to be careful. for sure. And I've seen a lot of companies blow through a lot of money trying to build their own tech stack.
Yeah, because it's like every thread you pull on creates more problems. That's been my experience in the past, working at a different company that I'd worked at previously, tried to build their own in-house tools for things. And then I was like, we could just use this tool off the shelf. It's $100 a month for Basecamp, for example, for project management, which is my project management tool of choice. And it's better than what you can build in the next lifetime, basically, you know,
And
because they're constantly adding to the product. And
I was
stuff.
going to say, they've got a whole team that are supporting it, making it better as you go.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. But yeah, some people have to learn this hard way, Dustin. So it's good to put it in here as a mistake.
Right.
Someone will still do it, and then they'll be like, yeah, you guys were right. Let's head over to number 6 then. Underestimating the competition and ease of organic sales. People shop around, and you need to know who is in your market, or what you look like, and you don't know where you operate. So what's kind of the process here of organic sales versus, I guess, what do you compare or contrast that with, Dustin, on your side?
Yeah, I think when you start a company like this and you go into a market and you're all gung ho and you know your value proposition and internally and intrinsically you can execute that. You think, oh, people are just going to line up and say yes, right? And anybody who's sold a product or a service knows that it's just not that way, and it's really hard. So I guess what I would, my caution here to people and the mistake we made is that like we just sort of in not only Pretora but other companies just thought we just enter a market and just grow like crazy, right? But it takes real effort, and I think you have to do so much to understand your competition and understand what value proposition and the differentiators. You can easily underestimate just really dialing that in so much, and it gets lost, right? Everybody's sort of saying the same thing a lot of times. There's all these catchy words, dynamic pricing, and blah blah blah, right? High touch and white glove service and full service. There's all these catchwords. Like everybody does all those things, and I would just don't underestimate that everybody's saying those things, and you need to I think emphasize what sets you apart and how you're going to actually get deals to the table and then close those deals and implement those deals. So competition is hard. There are a lot of great operators. Now the space is big and there's a ton of room to grow, but there are a lot of people sitting in my seat that are doing an amazing job, and trying to take a home from them, competition is tough. The bar has been raised year after year after year in this industry. And so, yeah, my mistake is just thinking we come out and just kick ass and take names and grow exponentially. Now we have grown, but it's taken us a while. And I think we took the time to understand what our value proposition is and how we can execute and what we're going to promise and what we're not. I mean, we turn people away all the time that just aren't a good fit. I'll give you an example. Somebody somebody came to us and wanted their home managed, a great home, but they didn't want to include a washer and dryer. And it's like a 12-person home. And it's like, like we just don't do that. We're not going to execute on that kind of rental. And, you can go, with somebody else. But yeah, I think it's all those things. It's really understanding the competition, understanding your value proposition. You can easily underestimate that because in your own mind, you think you're the best, and you may be the best, and you may have a good value proposition, but it's really tough, I think, to get out there and get somebody at the door. Also, it's a very relational business. Like a lot of people know their property manager and they trust them and they've been with them. And we're talking about, in our segment, multi-million-dollar houses that they're handing over to somebody, and just, getting to know Dustin on phone call and expecting them to just take it from the person they've known for 5 years and handing it over to you is tough. It's a big decision. It's emotional. There's relationships, there's trust. So you got to build that over time. Don't underestimate those aspects of building your organic growth model.
I couldn't believe. So when I launched in Ocean City, I thought that this is going to be easy. I actually secret shopped all of our competitors in that market. I mean, first off, I would fill out applications and online or email, and nobody would respond, which I've come to find out is apparently par for the course with this. I actually walked into this one office, and this was the 800-pound gorilla in our market. They had over 4,000 properties under management. Been around for 40 years. I walked into their office, and nobody said anything to me. It was a bunch of old ladies, you know what I mean? Looked like they've been out the sun way too much, smoked a lot of cigarettes. And then finally they just looked up at me like, what do you want? And I was like, this is like the 800-pound gorilla. Like, this is hospitality. And even before then, that little sign on the door said, per your lodging agreement, check-in is not till 4 p.m. If it's not 4 p.m., do not come in, exclamation point. Like, that was their welcome to Ocean City. And I'm like, man, this is going to be easy. But to your point, Dustin, like I couldn't believe how hard it was
Yeah.
to still capture market share from them, because
Yeah.
it was like the devil you know is better than devil you don't know. I mean, very often I've talked to people. I mean, I was like relentless in sales talking to these people, and it blew my mind. They're like, I'm miserable. I can't stand this company, but you know what? I know what I got. I don't know what
Yeah.
you. I don't know you. You know what I mean? So I've really struggled in the first, especially in the beginning. Like nobody wants to be the guinea pig until I got to about like 30 properties. Like then the flywheel started running. But like before that point, man, it was hard, man. It is a grind.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was
I
I
agree.
call it, Dustin, hand-to-hand combat. I'm just like, you got to win each contract one by one and do stuff one by
You're
one,
in the
and man, it's
trenches.
painful.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you're in the trenches. The last thing I was going to say,
Yeah.
bro, because you model out projections when we used to do ROI calculator stuff previously. What's your conversion rate? So if you get 100 leads, how many do you actually expect to turn into business? Do you remember what you put in there? It was a
It's
lower
usually
number,
20,
10.
20%. Yeah.
Yeah, 20%. That means even a good property manager is losing 80% of the leads that call and reach out to them as not getting it, and that's a good number, right? Some people might be a little
Yeah.
bit higher than that, but no one's at 100%. To your point, Dustin, to go back to the mistake, right? No one's even close to
Yep.
that. It just doesn't exist. So yeah, having realistic
That's right.
expectations is also a key part of it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, let's go over to number 7 then. In the interest of time, we'll get going here. Number 7: develop your value proposition and execute it 100% of the time. Know what truly sets you apart. If you can't do it, don't sell it.
Yeah, we touched on a little bit of this in number 6, but I think this can help alleviate, the competition and start that flywheel. And really, it's about execution. And if you overpromise and underdeliver, you're going to lose. You're going to have churn. It's best to just know what you can do and do it well. And we've done this many times. And there are differentiators that I think we do, and we execute on it. Like, for example, we came up with this thing called TRIP, Triple Rental Inspection Protection Plan. It's basically we touch the property and inspect the property 3 times before every stay. It's a post-stay inspection, it's a clean inspection, and it's a pre-stay inspection. We know that's a part of something that we do that's unique in most of our markets, and it's to deliver on the care of premium homes. So we know that's a differentiator. We talk about it in every single one of our marketing materials on our website. We talk about it to these homeowners, and we execute it. We have not missed a triple inspection on however many thousands of stays that we've done so far in the past year and a half, and we do it well. And so I think you have to be confident about what you do, and you have to execute it on 100% of the time, and that will help you with number 6, right? Is that growth and understanding your competition and what you do.
Well said.
Awesome. Number 8. I like Dustin, your mic drop moments. There's been a few so far. So we
no point in fluffing it if it's perfect.
Yeah. Some things come in just the right way. Number 8: losing touch with your front line and your guests. I like this one. Ask for feedback early and often from the people that are in the thick of it and your customers. When they tell you what's wrong, it could be too late.
Yeah, I mean, this is especially important as you grow and as you get bigger, and sitting in the CEO or the founder or the owner's seat, you sort of, you got to focus on other things than answering that guest call or maybe taking that owner call. You just have to focus on different things while you build out your team, but you can't lose touch of those things. So very often, we use Slack as one of our technology platforms, and we have our guest services channel. We just had ACL in Austin these past couple of weekends, and it's crazy. There's a lot of people, there's a lot of high-end reservations, a lot of people partying and music and all those kind of things. And, I was on my phone with them just looking at the channel. And I don't have to do anything, right? We got a full team to execute on all the shutting down parties and make sure guests have everything they need. But you start to see these trends, and you start, to understand what's going on way down in the front lines. And I think that's important. I look at every single one of our reviews. We pull all of our reviews into our Slack channel as well. And most of the time I'm bored at night, I just look and I read. I'm like, what do our guests want? What are they not getting? What are they excited about that we're doing we can do more of? And I think if you want to continue to iterate, and a business always has to, you have to stay in touch with those things. So find ways to stay in touch. I'll randomly call our owners and just ask them how it's going. I haven't talked to them in a year. Somebody else does that job, but you got to find those ways, I think, as a CEO or as an owner, sitting in this seat to stay very connected to the things that make your product or your service really, really good. And so I do that a lot.
Yeah, I would. Great point. I would actually like at least once a month on Saturdays. We had 500 turns on a Saturday. I mean, almost all of our reservations were Saturday to Saturday, which is just insane to think now. But I would actually do inspections on Saturdays, and it's amazing what you see, what it's like. And
Yep.
I mean, I was delivering linens, and I'm cleaning, and I'm emptying dishwashers, and I mean, I was out there, and it's amazing how much you learn. I will give so Rob Graber, the Vacasa CEO. He did some post a couple months ago about how he went on front lines, like or he met with the team like 3 different times, like in market. And I kind of gave him a little bit of a hard time, but I will tell him I will give him credit. He's been continuing to do that. He's getting out there. He's meeting with the teams. He's going to the front lines. And as a CEO, like you can't sit there in your ivory tower and do this. You have to get out there and see it. That's the only way you're really going to know it. So I will give him some kudos for doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, ultimately, I guess Bezos is like that too, Brooke, isn't he? Right, where he's like constantly diving into like the numbers, and they want to be the most customer centric company in the earth and that sort of thing. And yeah, like you can't deny the success they've had as well, taking that approach. That's for sure. Awesome. Well, number 9 then, Dustin, waiting too long and not prioritizing the marketing engine. Speaking to me a little bit here, perhaps. I like it. Relationships take a long time to build. Start early and have a well-defined plan. So what's the marketing engine that you've got going, or what did you, observe going
Yeah,
from
and
0 to 100?
I learned this really from Brooke, right? When we started out and we were really building our team and our tech stack, and we knew it was going to take a couple of months. I mean, starting a company from scratch, it always takes a few months to get those things set up, and we started talking about timing and what we needed to do and how many leads we needed to get and how long those were going to take to convert. And it does take a long time. It's a relational business, especially for a new name like Portoro coming into a market that most markets are very established. You got these big 800-pound gorillas in the room. And so it's played out that, it's true. It's just taken a while, and not that that's a bad thing, but it's just the truth of any branding, right? Any product that gets out there in consumers' hands or they see or hear about. So yeah, I would just say, we use Vintory. They've been critical for us to build that marketing engine. We use their platform. We use a lot of services, their design team and all kinds of things. And it takes a while, but once you start building that momentum, you're like, yeah, the things that I did 6 months ago were because they're of today, right? We got that sale because somebody picked up that flyer, right? 6 months ago, they had it sitting on their desk and they're like, I'm just tired of X, Y, and Z company, and we're going to call Portoro. And so I would just encourage people to get that marketing engine turning because it does take a while, but it'll come, right? You'll start to get those leads, and it'll be that one person, like I said, that picks that saved your email or saved that flyer or saved your business card from a year ago, 6 months ago. That'll just click and happen. And so started early and started often, and even on the guest side as well, right? Re-communicate to your guests, put them on your blog, and do those things that will keep them top of mind. Yeah, that's my advice.
I felt like there's something that was like called the rule of 7. I think it was established in the 30s. There was a marketing maxim that talked about like people really don't recognize your brand until you've actually had like 7 different touch points with them. So that's why we keep preaching over and over and over again. You have to be consistent in your marketing, and you just got to those little machines where you drop like you go to the arcade, you drop the quarter in, and it like pushes, and then they all fall. Like to me, like every piece of marketing is just like dropping another quarter into that little machine, and you see all the quarters like dangling over the edge, and eventually just that one little touch point you need is all it takes to kind of get them to convert. And that's why you see like attorneys are constantly advertising. You see car companies are constantly advertising. Like how often do you buy a car? Once every 5-6 years, right? But it's like when you have to be top of mind when you're ready to make that buying decision. So it's no different in short-term rentals for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. Awesome. Well, number 10, Dustin, I think we have a few more questions around you out here, but this brings us home on the mistakes list at least. Number 10, forgetting why you got into business and only focusing on the problems. You've got to find joy in what you do, have fun while doing it, celebrate the wins. Like this one.
Yeah, I'll call a spade a spade. Our business is hard, right? We're dealing with
Yeah.
guests and demands and turns and cleans and repairs and all this stuff. It can be tough, but you have to enjoy it. You have to think of the wins, and I like to find those in various different places. I love reading guest reviews. When you get that review and it just, like you can see how you made somebody's vacation and the memories, and they're thanking you about the experience and the house and all these things. You're like, man, that's why I do this. And I think, of all these mistakes, and I've read everybody else's in this book. It's great. But I wanted to put this one in here because you can get caught up in the mistakes. You can get caught up in the hard times, but we all typically enter this industry because we like servicing people. We like the hospitality and guest experience, and creating a great experience for our homeowners. And just don't forget that, because if you can ground yourself back in that, you can get re-excited and you can get energized. And for me, that's so important, to focus on the wins and the things that got you into the business, because you will have tough times. But it's a great industry, and it's a great piece of hospitality to be a part of, in my opinion.
I tell you what, Dustin, I love your mistakes here and the learning lessons from it. So thanks for sharing that. They reminded me a couple of things there. I mean, so many others had the same kind of comments. Lino Maldonado said, don't take yourself too seriously. You're selling vacations, for heaven's sakes, And then Tony Capert said, hey, again, same kind of thing. Echoed your statement, like take time to celebrate the wins and have fun.
That's right.
Awesome. This isn't in the outline, nor is it a mistake, Dustin. I'm just curious. What's the origin of the company name, Portoro? What does that mean? I'm just curious.
Yeah. So, you can see in our logo, it's a door. So it's two things really. A portal. So we want our homes to be a doorway into an experience, right? We want people not to think of them as just big structures, but it's really to open the doorway into a portal into an experience. The other thing is Portoro is a high-end marble, so it's like the luxury, the premium thing. So we just, found a great word with a couple syllables that had some adjacent meanings to the things that we wanted, and it fit within the brand. Yeah, so that's where it came from.
Nice. I always like to, when it's not obvious, I'm always curious of those things. So that wasn't in the outline.
Yeah.
Sorry, Brooke. But we got one more question, I think, on your side.
You were able to get the domain too, which is obviously an important part, right?
That is the important
domain name. A .com domain name, a man after my own heart. You got to get the .com domain name.
One of these days, Dustin, I'll tell you my story of getting the Vintory domain for like under $100.
I love it.
All right. So last question here, Dustin. If you could go back into time and go to your 25-year-old self and give yourself a little bit of advice, what would it be?
Yeah, I would say, leap, take a risk, and do something you're truly passionate about. I started out in the financial industry, worked for Fidelity Investments and a few other companies, and it just wasn't me. I just didn't like it. And, it took me a while to take a leap of faith. And I joined this, no-name company startup called Loop, which my friend started. And I wish I had done it years sooner, because, I took a 50% pay cut and slept in the office and grinded it. But man, was I passionate, and I had so much fun, and I learned so much. So while you're young, it's a lot easier to take risks and to jump out there and try to start something. So I would say, take a calculated risk, not dumb risk, but take a calculated risk while you're young, and now at close to 40 and a couple of kids and all those things. It would be a lot harder to do, but I'm glad I did it, and I would encourage those people who are trying to find themselves or find, what they're getting passionate about, is to try different things and try to go out on your own. And don't underestimate yourself. You'd be surprised at what you can do. And you can build a great company at 25 years old. So that's my advice to everybody.
I love it. Well said.
Nice. I like that. Awesome. Well, thanks, Dustin, for your time. We really appreciate you kind of hopping on with us here today and sharing your mistakes with us. I think this is a solid one, Brooke. This is a good, different perspective. Some things that, we kind of heard a few times before, but Dustin had a new take on it, which is always great. So if you've appreciated this, we always appreciate reviews. So that helps up. Don't make another mistake. Don't make an 11th mistake. Go to your podcast app of choice, leave a review, and that helps us out quite a bit. So thanks for your time. We appreciate you, Dustin. Brooke, we'll be back next week with another episode.
Sounds good. See you then.